Are you ready? Everybody's ready for this. All right, that's it. So I think last top 5 was the top 5 reasons not to use a dating app. This top 5 list is the top 5 computers. And I ranked them from worst to best. Top 5 computers. And I have an honorable mention before I start number 5. Number 5 is smartwatch. Smartwatch is honorable mention. It's a computer that you wear on your wrist, and it's low powered, but it can tell you various information. You can talk to it. It can track your activities. Is
it a computer or is it a peripheral?
I think it's a computer.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's a computer. Yeah, it's a computer. It's a little ARM computer. ARM, as in you wear on your How you like that little pun? So that's what I give honorable mention. I enjoyed my smartwatch. I like it because it has a SIM in it too, so I can make calls without having to carry around my phone, stuff like that. So honorable mention goes to the smartwatch. Number 5 is the mobile computer, such as the cell phone, the tablet, the phablet, basically any kind of PDA, all those that group into one called a mobile computer. Cell phones are pretty good, but I still haven't decided. Now, when I say cell phone, I mean smartphone and / tablet. I haven't decided yet if they are a net positive or a net negative for humanity, because there's a lot of people that I think should not have internet access that do, and they access the internet via their smartphone. You get a lot of good information from your smartphone, but I think the way that most people use it, not talking about us necessarily, but just the majority of the population, for texting, for talking, that part is good, but I think people waste a lot of time on social media or TikTok or things that don't add value to their life. They do a lot of arguing online. It's kind of pointless because you're never going to convince anybody of anything, which you can do with any computer. But I think the smartphone, especially with Twitter / X use, has made it a lot more accessible for people without actually thinking what they're typing, just to fire out some hot opinions or whatever, some hot takes. And I think with all the positives and all the negatives added up, I still haven't. What do you guys think? I still haven't decided whether the smart device is. I'm talking about for like humanity as a whole, whether it's a positive or a negative.
So I think, well, you'd have to differentiate. I mean, some people use a tablet the same way they do as a phone, but I mean, I've never.
See, I
Me
look at a
personally,
tablet as like a media consumption device.
tablet is a media consumption. It's my portable television. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's what I use. I use it basically. Its sole purpose is to watch something when I'm away from a television. I only use it for streaming video. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say maybe a browser, but I don't think I really. It's a bigger screen. I'd probably be better off using it as a browser, but I use the phone more than anything for the browser. I don't put any social on it. I don't put anything else on it.
But you're not the typical user, I would
I'm
say.
far from the typical user.
Yeah,
But
I mean, as a typical user who, I think a lot of them use it just to waste time. They just waste time that they could be doing something constructive, or they become addicted to it. And like digital addiction supposedly is a real thing now, where people like they panic if they don't have their smartphone with them, and they have to keep tabs on everybody's life on social media and stuff like that.
But that's a weird thing called FOMO, that fear of missing out on something. So they got to check everything every couple of minutes, that they're gonna miss out on what the next big thing is, or something big is gonna happen and they're gonna miss out. I don't understand. There's nothing. I don't care.
So would you say that smartphones have been a net positive or net negative?
I want to say it's a positive.
Why?
Because it's...
Now, I'm differentiating smartphones from the early mobile phones that you could still text and call people from, to the smartphone.
See, I want to say it's a positive, but I'm trying to come up with a good argument for the positive. There's a lot of arguments you can make for the negative side, because there's a lot of people out there who lack self-control, and those people do it so much that they show up as, it almost seems like it's the norm, because of how bad some of these people are.
Especially younger people that can't ever remember life before smartphones.
Because they don't know it for the most part.
Right.
They've always kind of had it.
Now, what do you think about smartphone use in school? Think that should be allowed?
No.
I think
they're
when
on a
students enter
freaking
the
tablet
school
all day long anyways.
They should have a locker or a container where you put your phone, then you get it as you leave school. That's what I think should happen.
So I think the only reason you should ever have the phone in school is to communicate with a parent.
Mm-hmm.
But you
remember
can't
the way we
control that.
used to do it? You used to get a intercom call to come to the office and then talk to your parents that way.
Right. But I mean, well, you know what? They could find out after they get out of school, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's much more of a distraction than anything else when it's used in school.
Right. Like, I mean,
I also think it's led to like the whole helicopter parent phenomenon, where since the kid has a phone now, the parent feels like they have to be in contact and know where the child is at every minute of the day, even if they're at school. It's like, I know friends of mine whose kids have smartphones, and they're texting them while they're in school. Like telling them things that can wait till after their classes are done. I think that's pretty dumb.
I agree that whatever it is that you have to tell them could probably wait until after classes are done. Being a helicopter parent, I don't think is anything that's new because of I like the idea that I could probably when my children have more of, like, my daughter has a phone, kind of. It only runs on, there's no SIM card in it. It only runs on Wi-Fi, and basically the only things on there is like Voxer, so we can contact her, and I think that's really sorry. Voxer's about it, but it still has like the GPS. I was going to use it at one point as just for the GPS, and so I turned on the GPS on it. So technically, it has the tracking on it. So she could probably, if she had it on her and she went somewhere else, I could probably track where she is with that. Oh man, you always get worried because there's a lot of scary people out there. It seems like that
There is, but I was about to say you could make the argument that most of these scary people have moved online to services that kids use and are not so much IRL threats anymore as they are, talking to kids on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and getting to know them and making connections with them when the kids don't know this is an actual adult I'm talking to, and talking them into doing things they wouldn't normally do. I think that danger is starting to move online more than definitely more than it has before the advent of smartphones.
I think it might be easier to do something like that online.
Yeah.
And you have to find the right group
Absolutely.
for it. And then as a parent, you should be aware of what online things your children are doing.
And most aren't. I would
That's because most
parents
don't care.
Aware. Yeah, they don't care.
But then you have to.
Or they don't know they don't know about the dangers either.
Well,
there's
that's
some very
ignorance.
manipulative adults out there that talk to your kids online. You have no idea who they're talking to.
But then that comes to the point of, where do you draw the line between being a helicopter parent and just trying to keep your kids safe?
I think it's not so much the helicopter parent thing as I think parents aren't changing their mindset from real world threats to online threats as quickly as they should. I think there needs to be a larger shift to what your child is doing online than there is currently. I think a lot of parents just think, oh, it's just the internet. What could it harm or something like that? But I think that's where most of those predators are, is online now.
I think there are a lot online, but I don't think they just went from, hey, I'm no longer going to try to pick up kids on this, try to the gray van with no windows, trying to get the kids candy and lure them into the van. I don't think those people moved to.
I think they have. I think most of them have.
I think the landscape has just broadened. I don't think it's changed. I think those people are still out there. I agree with you. They're still out there, but I just think they're using more modern techniques now to predate upon kids. Right, but again, I don't think that the landscape has changed. I believe it's broadened.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, but that's cell phone.
Yeah, we could probably have the cell phone argument for quite some time here.
Okay, number 4. Is the single board computer. Number 4 on my list. I would say, even though there were very small mobile computers before the Raspberry Pi kind of kicked it off at a cheap enough price where everybody could afford it, and also creating a community around computing that really got people interested. So, and from there it's kind of blossomed. Just like, even though there was the G1 was the first Android smartphone, it was really the iPhone that kind of kicked everything off as far as smartphones go, I believe. And I think the Raspberry Pi did the same thing for single board computers. I think it's brought a lot of people into the hobby because it's affordable, and or it used to be affordable, not as much anymore. But I think it's also helped with the adoption of new architectures like RISC-V and things like that. You see a lot more cheap single board computers and microcontrollers using RISC-V, which is always good to have an open instruction set like that. I think people, especially you start to see the stores like Micro Center have a whole section of just for micro computer or small single board computers and hobbyist accessories and things like that. Since Radio Shack went away, I think more people are paying attention to this kind of hobby again. And plus, I think that in some cases, like Netminer's case, that's all he needs is a single board computer. I think just watch a few videos, browse the internet, and it's affordable, and it's just opened up a whole new. Also, it's been very good for open source and for Linux in general, because these original single board computers, there's no way they could run Windows or anything like that. They needed a really small operating system just to run, and I think it's really helped advance Linux as far as more people learning it than they ever have before, because before you just had your regular computer and you just ran Windows and that's all you knew. But if you wanted to get into this new scene of single board computing, Windows just wasn't going to cut it anymore. You'd have to learn Linux, and they have millions of uses. But I would say that's my number 4 pick would be the single board computer.
So what drove me nuts with the single board computer was the people who would buy a single board computer going, okay, now what am I going to do with it?
Right, not having no use for it.
When I first started hearing
about,
of
FOMO too, right? Wouldn't you agree?
It definitely is. But I mean, it was when I first started hearing about the single board computers, I believe it was probably Door talking about the Raspberry Pi and talking about trying to set up different types of like file sharing servers or different types of small servers. And the big part of that really appealed to me was the fact that power consumption was very small. You just plugged in this little thing and space, power consumption, and you had a little Linux computer, a little Linux server, and there was several operating systems, and then things like DiaPi came around, where to install a server was just a fucking checkbox. All you had to do was install it in the initial run. In the initial run, you just clicked a couple of checkboxes. You want this server, this server, this server, and you were off to the races automatically. And I still feel that way. I still enjoy the fact that it's low power consumption. The same amount of power that it takes to charge my phone is running this server.
Right.
You know, and I may have several of them running at a time, but they're not really consuming anything.
Plus, they're not taking up hardly any space either.
They're taking up no space whatsoever. And I am not going to argue with your theory that something like a computer running Proxmox is better, because it's probably hands down better for doing all these things that my single board computers are doing. But I enjoy having them, and it's like I said, it's low power consumption. I can, if need be, I can take them away, put them up. I don't know.
I love them. I still love single board computer. I mean, I'm running still those old Rock 64s, that we got from Amazon, and they're no moving parts. Everything runs solid. It's very stable. Super cheap.
I liked it when they were cheap. I don't like the fact that they keep on going up and up and up in price. I mean, you can't argue with the power of them, but they keep going so high up in price that it loses its initial appeal.
Yeah.
How much did we spend on those the Rock 64s?
They were under $20, I think.
They were like $20 at least, and those have been great.
Yeah, and I've gotten so much use out of them too.
I know. Those have been great. That's my what the hell is it called? The Jesus Christ. One is
Etherpad?
No, Etherpad's my old Banana Pi.
Mm-hmm.
That thing's been running. That thing's been up. I haven't done anything to that thing in a long time. That thing's a fucking appliance.
Yeah,
it's a toaster. It sits there. That's all it does. It's running a Docker container. It's fine.
Reliable.
The holy shit! My brain just farted. The thing where I send it to and get all of my domains to. It's the
NPM, Nginx Proxy Manager.
Yes, NPM. That's it. Nginx Proxy Manager. Nginx was the word I was trying to think of. Yeah, one is my NPM.
Your proxy.
Yeah.
No issues, right?
Right. Like I said, some of these things they're just there.
What do you think, Netminer?
I have a couple of things to drop in here.
Yeah.
There's a $70 Raspberry Pi 5 hat that throws on some AI capabilities to your Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, I didn't even mention the accessories that they make for them now, and the GPIO, which is great.
Yeah. The whole yeah, but also you got to remember that the Raspberry Pi nowadays is competing pretty much head to head with a lot of cell phones and tablets as a media device. So yeah, some of the price increases are unfortunate, but they are. It's a different environment than it was when they were starting out.
When they started out, there was nothing like it. That's what was cool about it.
Well, also, originally, the Raspberry Pi systems were a replacement from the old micro computer hacking computers, Kims and that sort of thing, the 6502, the Z80 stuff. So they were very much a niche geek tool. The increased power has put the Raspberry Pi far more mainstream these days. And the geeking stuff has gone down to the Pi 02 and all of the other stuff.
Microcontrollers too, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what the Pi 02 basically is. It's the old Pi. It's the old cheap low performance Pi with Wi-Fi and whatnot. Also, yeah, you're there's a certain amount of feature creep with the mainstream Pis, and now they've moved to compatible microcontrollers. The Pi Pico 2040 or whatever it is these days. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of Pis nowadays, from microcontrollers up to limited performance devices like the 02W.
I'd say if you want the experience of the original Raspberry Pi, the zero line is the way to go, because you still get the cheap price. It can still run a full Linux distribution, and you still get that small form factor too. So I would say that the actual Raspberry Pi 4s and 5s have moved into their own domain, like Netminer says. Like, they're basically more like a mini PC than they are the original Raspberry Pi. So if you still want that experience, the zero line is the way to go.
The only problem with the two W's is well, I guess if you use the Wi-Fi on them, a lot of the problems disappear. But again, trying to get USB or Ethernet connections can be a little tricky.
right, so we'll go to number 3. Number 3 is the desktop PC. The personal computer was, I have no idea what the first computer desktop to be considered a personal computer was. Maybe, do you know, Netminer? Would it be the Trash 80 or something like that, or before that even?
I think you're looking. Trash 80 is about the earliest one. I mean, for everybody, Radio Shacks were everywhere. You could go in Trash 80. Now, which Trash 80? Somebody could bring a question. The color computer, the other stuff. But the original Z80 Trash 80 was the first one that gave a disk operating system computer in every little hamlet of the world. I mean,
that led to widespread adoption, I would say. And outside of like hobbyists and gamers and for office use, I think a lot of people have moved to cell phones and well, maybe not tablets, but cell phones to do email and things like that. And in the desktop computer, I think outside of those I mentioned is not as prominent as it once was, especially since you don't need one to get online anymore, and you don't need one to send emails and things like that. But I believe it still definitely has its place. And they're super cheap now. You can get a brand new N100 mini PC really cheap. You can buy them used super cheap. They have them at all the thrift stores around here, desktop computers. You could build one yourself, assemble one yourself like Honky did for Stable Diffusion. You could be a gamer, an enthusiast, and use your desktop computer, put dual video cards in it, and overclock your CPU and fill it full of RAM. Or you could just buy an all-in-one, like the iMacs that have the screen and the computer inside the screen and all that stuff. Yeah. So that would be number 3 on my list, the desktop computer, as far as the best computers. And I think there's so much to say about the desktop computer, especially when it comes to introducing computing to your normal household family. At one time, everybody had a desktop computer in the living room or in the den or in one of the bedrooms or something like that, and that was the family computer. That's what everybody used to do their word processing. And before internet, they would do their accounting and all that stuff on the desktop computer. That's number 3. Number 2. Is the server. When I say server, I don't mean a desktop computer converted to a server, but I mean the actual server computer. The very first computers, you could argue, were servers. Like the ones that used, what was that? The ENIACs and stuff like that, Netminer. The tube computers. UNIVAC, is that what they were called?
Yeah, UNIVACs, and well, a lot of those were one-offs, and the early IBMs, the IBM 701, 702s, and these were machines where they didn't use core memory. They used CRTs, where data was stored as phosphorescent spots on a CRT.
And to interface with them, you had just a console that was basically a monitor and a keyboard. and the actual server was out of sight somewhere.
Oh no. Oh no. Interfacing to those machines was key punches,
Oh, you're talking about the earliest ones. Okay.
card sorters, and your printing console was a teletype or
Dot matrix.
a Selectric. No dot. Well, dot matrix was early, but most of them were for interactive work were going to be some kind of keyboard printing terminal, and that's where your I/O Selectric came in with the 360, 370 series, which is a Selectric typewriter that hooked up to your computer through the appropriate interfaces, and was also hooked up to some of the early generations of hobbyist personal computers through hacking interfaces.
Now, when you used to go to the computer lab at MIT and use those, right?
I went to a computer that was assembled from discards. It was a PDP-11, I think 45, 1170, and then a small VAX. But the interesting part of that computer was the screens and keyboards were night TVs. These were a multi-headed, essentially a Hercules type monochrome display with a keyboard. Don't think you had a mouse. The only mouse I saw in the computer room had a real tail and was considered vermin. But they were run on. That was a. This was a video system originally used to run on the original PDP-1s or PDP-10s in the AI lab, and they had a mini computer that acted basically as a multi-headed video display. Yep. And they had some screensavers. Originally, the screensavers were scanned Playboy centerfolds, but they had to change those because that wasn't considered kosher. But yeah, back in the day. Also, they hooked up to the ARPANET through a primitive form of Ethernet called ChaosNet.
So now servers are pretty much ubiquitous. Everything we do online passes through a server of some kind. Every business has servers, has a server room. The internet runs on servers, and these are usually out of sight. And so when people rent VPSs or whatever, they're renting space on a server somewhere. And the cloud was a big term not too long ago, and that's just a server somewhere. And so servers handle everything today, including the recent AI boom. That's all through servers. And so servers is my number 2 pick for best computers.
Oh, by the way, there's another place you'll find a server.
Mm-hmm.
In printers.
Oh, that's right.
The interface, back in the day, you had to hang your printer off of a real PC. And then they invented this little card that had the Ethernet interface and went inside your printer, and suddenly your printer had its own dedicated print server card. So all of your printers now, well, again, are basically servers. They take the stuff off the wire and they produce out.
All right, that brings us to the number one, the top computer. The laptop. The laptop is my pick for the best computer out of all the computers I've listed. The number one top computer is the laptop. I think that brought actual working and computing environments to the mobile landscape, where you could travel, you could do whatever you want to, and you could always carry your computer with you. You had your documents. It's different from a tablet in that it has its own keyboard built in. You can interface with servers, you can interface with desktops, you can interface with all other computers with the laptop. You can get all kinds of work done. Some people, like me, basically use laptops for everything, from server administration to video rendering to whatever. And the best thing about it is it comes with its own monitor. It comes with its own wireless connection, Ethernet connection, USB connections, and it's totally portable. You can just fold it up and carry it with you. It's a workstation on the go. It's the laptop computer. I think this has made a huge contribution to computing in general, and as far as how business gets done, commerce, creative design, all of that stuff. I think we wouldn't be where we are today without the laptop computer. So that is.
I have another honorable mention then.
Okay, go ahead.
Luggables.
What's that?
Before the laptop, and actually, if you look at my brother's as a gaming laptop, I think they've reinvented them. The first portable computers, that is to say, a computer that you could put in your car and move from office to office, were called Luggables.
Luggables. Now, did these include
they had a
keyboard?
Yes, the Osborne one had a very tiny screen, 2 floppy drives, and a keyboard. In fact, the keyboard clipped onto the bottom of the machine, and you had a handle like for a suitcase. My first computer was one of these that had 2 400 kilobyte floppy drives in it. This cost me a couple $1,000 back in the day, and was killed because bad power in my house burnt out the linear power supply in the computer. But the Luggables were the first ones that allowed you to, that were designed to be taken from office to home to whatever. They were before laptops because they required wall power. But the laptops came along afterwards when you started getting plasma screens and lightweight and more efficient power systems, so you could actually have a battery that would last a percentage of your working day.
That's a
But-
good honorable mention. Luggables.
Now, I will also mention that I really need to take care of a few things. So I hope we're closing shop pretty soon.
That's really all I had, unless you guys have anything else.
No, not really. But you guys remember when I showed you my little luggable, right?
No.
I dug that thing out. I don't want to dig it out again. But yeah, it had a CRT screen that was like that big. It was a monochrome black and orange screen. It had, I think I had a 5 1/4 and a 3.5 drive on it. It originally started off with a 300 baud modem, but I later upgraded it. I don't know what I topped it off at.
What's
before I
the
went to an
CPU
actual
in it?
desk. I don't remember.
Mm.
It was old as hell. It ran DOS. That was it.
Well, are you sure it ran DOS?
Yes.
Okay. That meant that it was an 8088 or 8086,
Probably an 80. Yeah, probably an 8088.
which was the IBM PC processor.
Yep.
The machine that I had that I paid $2,000 for had a Z80 with 64 kilobytes of RAM running CPM. Again, a text-only operating system. Didn't really even have subdirectories much. Anyway.
What kind of things did you do with that luggable netminer?
Oh, well, I did some programming. I did some BBSing, stuff like that.
Oh, there we go.
Also, a lot of the stuff downloaded was your usual GIFs and stuff.
That might be more. That may be worth something, Hunky. Does it still work?
As I said, the power supply burst. Hunky's machine might be worth something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Give that to your daughter. Say, here's your new school computer.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
Keyboard.
go. So it unfolded. I see.
Well, the keyboard comes off of the front. That's the CRT screen.
Okay.
The drives. It looks
So
like
what-
2 5 1/4 drives.
What kind of things did you do with this computer?
BBS, some basic text files.
Word processing?
Yeah, a little word processing.
Any games?
Yeah. I mean, very simple. The games, obviously.
WordStar.
I don't know.
Zork?
No. Now I gotta get the keyboard to go back on the cover.
Yeah, you need to keep. That's a family heirloom right there.
There we go. Yeah, luggable is
Is that
to lug it?
generous?
Yes, it's very generous. It is. Oh fuck! It is fucking heavy.